Well, it looks like Sidney Brown is on the PUP list for the start of training camp and what it means and where is this going to go. We're going to be talking about that. We're also going to be talking about Jalen Carter and then of an all-pro year he's going to have this year, the rest of this defensive line. Is the rotation deep enough? Are we good depth-wise on the defensive line going forward? What Vic Fangio has in store for this defensive line? And we're going to be talking about Nick Sirianni and a lot of reports coming up for his job security. Is he on the hot seat this year? How far do the Eagles have to go for Nick to keep his job? We're going to find out.
A killer buried, but not dead.
Darren, we better turn around. Because I've seen enough horror movies to know any weirdo wearing a mask is never friendly.
Yo, what's going on, guys? I hope everyone's having a fantastic day today. So I want to go over some news for the Philadelphia Eagles. As usual, we are just a couple days away from Eagles training camp, and a lot to go over today, discussing first on the list with Sidney Brown now being on the PUP list, okay? Now, from what we've seen the last couple months from Sidney Brown and kind of coming back from that ACL, he's looked pretty damn good. He's been ahead of schedule, and says he will be back by the regular season. And sometimes that's not the best way to come back. And, if he has no choice, then it is what it is. But he will start out at training camp on the PUP list, okay, which he will not be practicing. This will give him a chance to come back during training camp, okay, and being on the roster, counting towards the roster. Now, once he hits the regular season, if Sidney Brown does not come off that PUP list by the first game of the season, and he's still on the PUP list, he's going to miss about 4 games. And he will not count towards the roster. So the good thing is, if the regular season starts, and obviously it's bad that he's not playing, but it's good because the Eagles can keep him on the PUP list, still kind of be, he won't be on the roster, but he will be ours, like, until we get him off, and then we could, have to cut somebody to practice squad or something like that, whatever it is. They could sign another player, whether it's or elevate somebody from the practice squad to help another position on the field or something like that. So that is really the whole situation right now. I'm hoping he's only going to be out for maybe another week. If that's the case, high ceiling player, Red Star player for the Philadelphia Eagles that exemplifies himself to be, a Philadelphia Eagle based off his work ethic and just what it means to be a Philadelphia Eagle. So they have really high praise for him. Tough kid. I really liked him playing safety. I mean, even from being from corner to safety, being a hybrid player, the more hybrid players you have, the better it's going to be for your defense, where if you have injuries, you can always move guys around. The Eagles have a lot of that in this defense this year for the 24 season. I liked how he would cover so much ground as a safety with that agility and his footwork, certain times getting beat in pass coverage, catching up with his feet and, getting some deflections, which he really showed his toughness there. Doesn't give up on plays. He's a great player. It's unfortunate that in a game that really didn't matter against, what was it, the New York Giants, he ended up getting hurt. And he's a great special teams player too. So hoping he comes back. Does he affect the safety spot too much? I don't know. Depending on how you really look at it, if they think Reed and Chauncey's good enough with, if they want to sign Justin Jefferson, I'm always reading these articles that, the Eagles need safety help. They need to add another body. They're looking for safety help. Howie Roseman's doing all he can to look for safety help. Whatever these reports are coming out from third parties, if they know something. Do I like the depth at safety too much? No. With Sidney Brown not there, kind of sucks. We don't know what they're doing with Cooper DeJean, if they're moving him to safety or whatever. We don't know what's going on because we have a lot of bodies at corner right now and some hybrid players that can move around. And Sidney Brown is a very important player for this franchise going forward. And hopefully he comes back, because when you come back off an injury, even if he makes it for the regular season, comes back, the guy's not practicing, the guy's not in full pads, he's not hitting anybody. It takes your body to really get back to 100%. I don't care how, mentally, I don't care how much you're listening to practices and meetings. Like, if you're not playing, it's a whole different story. Get used to the speed of the game again when you haven't played in a while. So there's a lot that goes into it, but Sidney Brown not being around at practice kind of sucks. Not being involved, and hopefully this is like he's going to be out for maybe a week. I'm hoping that's the case, because it's training camp's going to go by really fast. Preseason games are going to go by really fast. We have a couple open practice dates, so hopefully soon he will be back. We'll see what happens with that situation. Now, secondly, I want to go. We haven't talked about him in a while with Jalen Carter. I think is going to have an All-Pro year this year. Okay, what he has showed us. Two players that I feel really good about. Okay. Two guys that I didn't really make a lot of videos on until like the end of before training camp starts, and that was Jalen Hurts and Jalen Carter, because I think even with Jalen Carter, there's so much potential there. We know it's there. We've seen what he could do, how disruptive he is in the backfield. We're just waiting for him to just explode, and I think this is going to be the year 2024 where he really makes his mark, gets even more attention than what he was getting. We know this defensive line really fell off. You kind of question, like, this is like one of those years where I feel like the defensive line behind the starters, it's really subpar because there's a lot of uncertainty with a lot of these backups right now. Jalix Hunt, 3rd-round pick rookie, handpicked by Vic Fangio. How much are we expecting out of him? Could he be the mystery player that really breaks out? I don't know. Nolan Smith, not his fault, didn't do enough last year. You trade HaasonReddick. Brandon Graham's retiring after this year. I can't really go on him to put up a lot of numbers. Josh Sweat, I'm expecting him to have a double-digit sack season. Bryce Huff, I think, is going to have a fantastic year this year. I think Bryce Huff is going to be worth that $17 million. We're gonna think that $17 million is nothing. It's going to be dirt cheap. A couple of years down his career, we're going to see what it looks like, but I feel really good about that. So, you have guys like Maro Ojomo that has flashed at the end of the year last year. Milton Williams gets better every single year. Jordan Davis, obviously 3rd year, fell off last year, really, and is in shape and looks lean, and everybody says great things if he's in shape and looks faster and quicker, and hopefully that motor is a lot better and he's not running out of gas so easily now. There's a lot riding on this defensive line. I feel like this is the first year where they're really, Fangio is putting, I'm not saying Fangio is putting more, he's favoriting the secondary a lot more this year, but I think we have to be athletically sound in the secondary. We need guys to make these fast break tackles, get 4 or 5 helmets to the football. We didn't know how to stunt. We didn't know how to blitz. We didn't know how to do much of anything last year. Linebackers didn't play downhill. It was a complete mess. And obviously switching defensive coordinators wasn't the great plan either. But for Jalen Carter's sake, I think just great things are coming with him. One of my favorite players on this team, and I can't wait to see what he does and where they're going to line up and who they have him next to. It's going to be really interesting. The starting quality is great. I still feel like they do need to add another body. Whether it's DT, whether they're going to trade for Cam Hayward, not for a 2nd-round pick and maybe a 4th for 26, but not a 2nd-round pick. Yannick Ngakoue is visiting the Miami Dolphins, as I heard the other day, because I think their defensive end ended up retiring, so he's working out for them right now. So there's really slim pickings out there for any other defensive lineman. But this is the first year where I'm not saying, man, this defensive line is deep. There's just a lot of uncertainty right now, especially on the edge. That's probably where it's the worst right now. You lose Fletcher Cox, so I think he was one of the only few players last year in 23 that actually played pretty well. That really stood his ground and didn't give up, and it seemed like there was a lot of players that just were fed up, and I don't blame them at all for how this DM what they did. And Patricia started incorporating different things last year. It's like you can't do that mid-season. You can't do that. You can't implement new things for the defense. I mean, sure, different coverages or something like that, but you're doing things with players. You're putting Bradbury man to man that Seattle game against JSN. You're doing things that you're setting up these players to fail. You're putting them in failed situations because that's not how they should be used. So this defensive line, and hoping to God, and look, Vic Fangio with Miami was top 10 against hits on quarterbacks, third in pressures. So I'm hoping that there's something there. He knows how to get pressure with his defensive lines, uses linebackers, all that great stuff. So I'm excited about Jalen Carter, the rest of this defensive line, where it's heading, and we'll see where it goes. Now, lastly, one more thing I want to go over is Nick Sirianni. So there's been a lot of reports coming out on Nick Sirianni's job security going forward. And what's really interesting here is how far do the Eagles have to go this year, for Nick to keep his job? It's very uncertain to me because Kellen Moore hasn't been a head coach yet. I'll give you an example. The Kansas City Chiefs. The Eagles do not keep their play calling in-house. You know what I mean? Nick Sirianni started play calling in 21, didn't work, gave it to Shane Steichen. Shane Steichen took full control. Shane Steichen was successful in 21. You know, we made it. We got into the playoffs. It is what it is. We didn't get far, obviously. And then gives the full play calling to Shane Steichen. And then Steichen leaves. And then Nick takes over yet again for play calling and hires no experience around him. And literally, it's a failed situation. And Nick finally, or Howie Roseman, Jeffrey Lurie finally pulled the plug on this situation. They hired two extremely high IQ coordinators that know what they're doing and have a lot of years of experience at those coordinator positions to coach this team and put them in the right position to win, put players in the right position to win football games. Okay. Andy Reid calls all the plays for KC. He's had multiple offensive coordinators. Okay. Andy Reid keeps everything in-house. And the Eagles are going to have to keep everything in-house. We can't afford Kellen Moore to leave and go somewhere else. Now, if Kellen Moore is getting a head coaching job, after, say the Eagles play fantastic, Kellen Moore gets a head coaching job. The Eagles can't block Kellen Moore from getting a head coaching job. If Kellen Moore is going after another coordinator job, they could block it. But when it comes to a head coaching job, they can't block it. Okay? That's going to be an issue going forward. So if the Eagles do really well, whether they win the AFC Championship and lose the Super Bowl again, or win the Super Bowl, or however you want to pan this thing out, the way it's going to be with the Eagles season, okay? I think it's going to be really up to Kellen Moore if Nick's going to be out the door, to be honest with you. I don't think the Eagles are going to fire Nick if they get to an NFC Championship game or a Super Bowl. I don't think so, because at the end of the day, like it's gonna make the team look really bad. If Nick gets fired after a somewhat successful year or a year going really far, you know, I mean, in my honest opinion, it's Super Bowl or bust this year. Like if they don't even get to a Super Bowl this year, this is a failed team this year. Okay, so Nick can get demoted to be an assistant head coach or something like that. I just don't think, unless Kellen Moore looks god-awful and then Nick is just starting to piggyback off of negativity. And you know what happens when this team starts losing and Nick looks like he's lost 10 years of sleep and looks miserable, and you know what I mean? But this is different. This is different this year because all the control is with Kellen Moore. So if Kellen Moore is that successful and us Eagle fans are saying, holy crap, we have to keep him here, there's no way. He's got to be our head coach or something. He's got to get an upgrade here. So you can't let that man leave the building if he's successful here and then go through the process yet again, get another offensive coordinator. Keep your play calling in-house. That's how it should be. Okay? Number 2, okay, KC's defensive coordinator. I always forget his name. KC's defensive coordinator has been with KC for what, 5-6 years? The same defensive coordinator has been there 5-6 years already, since 2018, 2019, whatever year it was. Okay? And that's a problem. You know, Nick has had this thing of keeping the same defense around since 21. And then when Gannon leaves, he still keeps the same defense. Obviously, the Super Bowl, obviously, the illegal tampering BS that was going on with Gannon and the Cardinals and all that stuff, and he wasn't getting the team prepared, and he was focused on more of his head coaching job than coaching the team for the Super Bowl because it looked like they had no idea what they're doing. It's weird to me because Nick's in trouble to me. I'm sorry, but he is. It's funny how Gannon was the defensive coordinator here, played very passive at times, had some success, and almost had a generational defense in 22. I mean, almost generational. Like, they almost beat the sack record in the NFL through a season. I think the Eagles, I don't know if they tied or they did beat their sack record for that year. It was like 7. I forgot how many sacks it was. 70-something sacks. I forgot what it was. Okay. Gannon leaves. So they lose that Super Bowl in 22 horribly. Defensively, what the hell happened? Then Gannon becomes the head coach to the Arizona Cardinals. He comes to Philadelphia, and he is the most aggressive coach I have ever seen. It's kind of weird, right? How Gannon comes to Philadelphia, really aggressive. Arizona was very aggressive last year. Not a great team, but they were aggressive defensively. So Nick has his paw prints on all of this. He has way too much control on this Vic Fangio defense that we've been running without Vic Fangio. Okay? Big problem here. This is a bigger problem than we actually realize here. Okay? And there's no problem this year. I think entirely this has been fixed because Nick is on a short leash now. Nick is outside the circle looking in, and that's all he's going to be doing. He's not getting into anything, involved in anything. Okay? So that's your number 2 on, we can't even keep a defensive coordinator in the building for a while. And that's a whole nother problem. If Vic Fangio fails, then what? Are we back to the same defense again? I mean, for me, if Vic Fangio fails this year as a defensive coordinator, I'm willing to go back to a more aggressive approach defensively because I'm just tired of it. And then what happens is you're getting players through the draft, free agency that fit defensive ends that can go into coverage and cover and go after the quarterback. Like, you're getting specific players for the scheme more than, it's a headache. It's a lot to really think about in a lot of ways. So I hope you get what I'm saying here. So that's where I'm at with this whole thing with Nick and just what he has done to this team. Okay. He's a great person from a culture aspect. That's where he's best at, creating the culture, keeping it within the team, and the players really believing in him, but he has got to stand back. So I don't think he's getting fired. I think this offense it can't get worse than last year. It can't. And I'm not accepting a subpar offense that looks just a little bit better than what we did in 23. This thing has to be off the walls, 30 plus points a game crazy. Okay, I'll take a rainy game. I'll take a ugly win if we have to take an ugly win. But I better see a high caliber, high explosive defenses on their heels, don't know what to do against the Eagles personnel offensively. I mean, I want to see ankles broken in open space. That's what I want to see. And I'm hoping that's what we get going forward down the stretch. So that's really all I had to say about a few bits of news. Sidney Brown, let me know what you guys think about the PUP list. How long do you think he's going to be on it? Nick's job security, what do you think about him as a coach, really since 21 till now? And how much has he really interfered? And where do you have the Eagles to where Nick's job is safe, to where he gets fired? Is it really on Kellen Moore? So let me know. And obviously Jalen Carter, the defensive line. What Vic Fangio is going to do with these guys, high upside with a lot of these players, but seems like they put a lot more into their secondary, which isn't a bad thing. I want as many guys in the secondary, young talent in the secondary as possible. So that's where we're at. If you guys haven't checked out the Philly Shakedown podcast merch, definitely check it out. We have sleeveless t-shirts for men and women as of right now going forward for the summertime. And really going forward, we have a big release coming out on the 29th. I'm going to be actually live streaming and showing everybody what has been cooking before the big release on the 30th. So I will show all the new designs coming out. The Redemption line is coming out, and I can't wait to showcase it to you guys. Me and Philly have been working really hard, on this merch and getting things the way we want it done, because if we're coming out with premium quality, we want as much premium design as possible with these things. So we want to make sure it's perfect for you guys, and we're going to unveil that really soon. Other than that, guys, that's pretty much it. Make sure you subscribe to the channel for more Eagles news every single day. We'll be live streaming, obviously, throughout training camp. We'll be putting videos out every day for training camp, everything that happens, and we'll be, live streaming and talking about all week. So we're getting back to the grind of things. So I think we're 40-something days away from the season. It's going to come by. It's going to come quicker than you can imagine. We'll be past preseason and already to the first game in Brazil really quick. Really soon. So very excited about that. Make sure you like the video. Do appreciate that as well. You guys have a fantastic day, and I'll see you guys on the next one. Shakes, what up, follow side. Peace out, guys. Peace.